Welcome to the Black Magic Woman podcast with Mundanara Bayles. Welcome to another episode of the Black Magic Woman podcast. My name is Mundanara Bayles, and if you are a first-time listener, thank you so much for finding us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now we're over 100 episodes and going strong thanks to people like you that are supporting the podcast. With all of the episodes and in Aboriginal culture, first and foremost, following proper protocol, I would like to begin by acknowledging the lands where I am today, which is the Kabi Kabi peoples here on the Sunshine Coast. I'd also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present and acknowledge that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. We have never ceded our sovereignty as First Nations peoples living in this country, now known as Australia. In terms of acknowledging traditional owners, this is the oldest living continuous culture in world history in terms of Aboriginal people or First Nations peoples in this country. We've got a long history of following proper protocol and how we engage and interact and how we conduct ourselves as visitors on somebody else's country. Just recently, I actually went to Sydney on the lands of the Gadigal peoples. The Gadigal peoples are one of 29 tribes across the Eora Nation. And a lot of mob down in Sydney, I would say, come from all over the country. I was there actually yarning with Shanell Dargan, who is an amazing boxer, a mother, a singer. I'm pretty sure she was a youth worker or still is doing some youth work and a lot of volunteering in her community out there in Western Sydney. I had the absolute pleasure of spending a good hour yarning with the sister about her life, growing up, her nan, her number one supporter, still inspiring her today and supporting her with looking after her little fella. She's got a 4-year-old and chasing her dreams of being a world champion boxer and representing our people at the same time. This yarn left me feeling on top of the world, super excited that she's actually got a fight coming up this Saturday, the 8th of October in Newcastle, in New South Wales. So look, I hope you enjoy this episode. We talk about so much and hopefully, especially for our younger mob and young Aboriginal girls, I hope that you find or draw some inspiration from this episode. My guest today is Shanell Dargan, and I just want to say, Shanell, thank you so much for making time to jump on the podcast.
Thank you.
And, in terms of, a little bit about yourself, I ask everyone to introduce themselves. So who's your mom? Where did you grow up? And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Shanell Dargan. I grew up in Campbelltown in southwestern Sydney. My mob on my mother's side, Wiradjuri, so a little small town called Peak Hill. It's in the middle of Parkes and Dubbo, so tiniest little town ever. On my father's side, he grew up in Redfern on the block with my grandmother, Barbara Stacey, but she's originally from Bow Desert in Queensland, so Mundanara, and she was forcibly removed from there and then taken to Kuta, and then she ended up in the block on Redfern.
So Annie Barb was a Kuta girl?
Yes, she was.
And Annie Barb and my Uncle Gary were like best friends?
Yeah, I know. Isn't it crazy how worlds align?
I had no idea that Annie Barb was your grandmother.
Yeah. So, she passed away a couple of years
recently.
ago. Yeah. And, it's sad having like a, strong, powerful Aboriginal woman like that, and all of her knowledge and that she passed down onto us is kind of gone, but she still lives on in her grandkids.
Of course. So in terms of growing up in Campbelltown, what was that like?
Yeah, Campbelltown's a very multicultural town. I kind of see it as a place where everyone from every culture, especially Aboriginal people, have all come there and made their little home. So it's predominantly Aboriginal Islander people that live there, and I loved it. It's pretty rough. It was pretty rough growing up.
Similar to Redfern?
Yeah, it was one of those those places where it was, you know, a lot of housing commission. I grew up in housing commission with my grandmother, and she not only raised me but 5 of my other cousins.
Yeah.
So in a little small 3-bedroom house. So we were like living on top of each other, and
no one had their own bedrooms.
No, I was like sleeping next to Nan like till I was in school and stuff. Yeah. Just, you know, that was our life, and I loved it.
So we slept on the lounge room floor most of the times.
Yeah.
With my mum. Yeah. And I've got 8 sisters. Yeah. And literally, you would have at least 3 or 4 mattresses in the lounge room floor.
Yeah.
Every night.
Yeah.
And then all the rest that come to sleep as well.
They just wherever they could get a spot.
You might have someone at the foot of you, someone next to you.
Honestly.
And that was normal.
Yeah.
So we grew up, well, when we left Redfern, there was 3 bedrooms, and some nights there was 21 people.
Yeah, crazy.
And 1 bathroom.
It's crazy, right?
I know. Now I've got 5 bathrooms.
You have to make sure of that, eh?
I always said all I wanted was my own bathroom.
Yeah.
And I hate the fact when there's a toilet in the bathroom.
Yes.
And I know first world problems, right? Tell us about Campbelltown. So Campbelltown, for people, a lot of black fellas, a lot of other nationalities, big Pacific Islander population there now. What was school like? Did you get to year 12?
Yeah, so I lived in a town called, a suburb called Ambervale, and that was predominantly housing commission. The street was everyone in the housing commission, but we grew up and it was rough, but I loved it. It made us who we are today. I went to Ambervale Public School, and then my nan really wanted me to kind of pursue my singing, and I loved singing. So there was a Campbelltown Performing Arts High School, and you had to audition to get in there, and I auditioned in year 6. And was successful and got to go there and pursue my music.
So tell me about your music, because I know the first time I came across you was on the X Factor.
Yeah.
What was that like? What led you to the X Factor?
Yeah, well, I started singing really at a really young age. I was about 6, but my nan would tell you that I was like 2, running around and grabbing little hairbrushes and pretending they were microphones, and she always said I used to hum, and that was kind of, or if I was upset, I'd just hum and sing, and she thought that I'd always be a singer, and that's what I really, really wanted to do. I was lucky enough, I finished year 12. I went to the Australian Institute of Music for a little bit, but deferred after a year.
What was it like? Like, especially for a lot of our listeners and viewers now that they're watching on YouTube, but especially for a lot of our mob that sometimes get to that point where whether it's university or college, or they leave, you know, Campbelltown and come down here, like to the city, and work in these buildings here.
It's close, but it's so far from, I guess, where we grew up in Campbelltown. It's really kind of a bit laid back. It's a bit, I guess, rough. Like I said before, like there's a lot of high crime rate and stuff there, but it was a really great community. I was lucky enough, like my sisters, my nan and my dad were all in Redfern on the block, so my nan would always take me in, and I got to spend some time in there, and I loved it, being around family, and especially my dad as well. Yeah.
In terms of the institute, is it Institute for Music?
Yeah, Australian Institute of Music.
What was it like? Was there any Aboriginal students at the time?
Not in my class, there wasn't. It was really different. So a lot of it was a lot of theory-based music, where even though I went to a music school, it was something that I struggled with. And I felt being Aboriginal, it was all that theory stuff was something that I wasn't.
Yeah, it's really another language. It's too foreign.
It was very difficult for me, where I just knew how to sing, and I knew.
But I was just going to say, in terms of a lot of other privileged children that would go to those institutes, they'd probably have private tuition.
Yes.
And probably had private tuition since they were little.
Yeah.
And you rocking up from Campbelltown.
Yeah. I had no, proper singing lessons, ever.
I can imagine.
And, you know, singing lessons are about $100, and these
Yeah, you got
kids
Nan
were,
looking after you, raising you at Campbelltown.
Yeah, literally, she had
Yeah.
no car, so we were literally everywhere we went was on a train, a bus.
Yeah.
No matter what, she'd get there, and even if we had to get up at 5 a.m. to go to, you know, various gigs, she'd get me there, and you know, everything. I owe everything to her because she literally pushed me to be, I guess, everything that I wanted to be. But if without her, I would never have been able to achieve anything that I have.
And we're talking about a woman who was forcibly removed under government policy.
Well, that was my nan.
And two nans on one side.
Yeah, this is my mum's mum, and then I got my dad's nan. So
your dad's mum is Annie Barr.
Yeah. And
from
then
the block.
Yeah.
And then your mum's mum.
Yeah, she's actually Irish. So,
an Irish woman.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and
I've seen a lot of footage of you now.
Yeah, yeah, she's the best. I was very lucky though. When she was with my pop, she lived in Peak Hill. She grew up on country there, and so she knew all my family there and grew up and was really connected. Yeah. And she made sure that was instilled in me as well. Being an Irish woman, but still knowing who my mob was something that I now take into an account because I feel very lucky because, you know, you have kids, and if my nan wasn't there, I would have been in the system, you know, in various different foster homes, and lucky enough that she stepped up and raised me and all my other cousins. So.
Wow. So you've got a little boy?
Yeah, I do. A little 4-year-old. He thinks he's 14.
Yes, they're the boss.
Yes.
I tell every single, whether I'm delivering training or doing the podcast, in Aboriginal families, the youngest is the boss of the house.
Yeah, he's a little man. So luckily I'm fit and I can run because he keeps me on my toes constantly, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think everything I do now is for him, and I want to show him that he can just do anything he wants, no matter what. Like I really just want him to never ever have to go through certain things that I did growing up.
Of course. And I think even, like, I'm a mother as well, I think of the opportunities my kids have. We live on the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
And I come down to Redfern, I see my sister living on the block with her kids, raising her kids, single mother as well, doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
But I envy the fact that her kids are growing up on the block with mob. My kids are growing up in a very privileged neighbourhood with no mob.
Yeah.
So trying to bring them back to Sydney, especially back to Redfern, so that they can see their family. However, this time around, they're like, no, we're school holidays. They've actually found their feet in Coolum. Yeah. They've got their friends and not interested. No, Mum, we were just there a couple of months ago. It's like, all right. Save me airfares. Yeah. I didn't need to get a bigger hire car, and I didn't need to get 2 hotel rooms. Yeah. So I wasn't going to force them to come down here, but I felt for the first, at least the last 2 years, I had to bring them either to Brisbane or to Sydney so that they could be around mob. And for probably the main reason is so that they don't forget who they are.
Yeah, 100%. I always, even now, my best friend, she lives in Redfern, Waterloo, and we didn't know, I come in and I played for Redfern All Blacks when I was about 17 in the knockout. That was my first.
Your game.
Yeah, my first ever knockout, and we ended up winning it, so that was good. But yeah, coming in, people knew who I was, but they didn't realise my connection to Redfern until, I let them know, my sisters, who my family was, and they welcomed me with open arms. And I honestly class Redfern as another home for me because I feel so connected to it. And yeah, my best friend, Shaquille, she grew up Redfern, Waterloo, and her aunties and stuff knew my mum and my dad, and just all of a sudden, we've had this connection from day dot, and we still now to this day best friends. And
Uncle Dave.
Yeah, my Uncle Dave.
Who's like I am his favourite niece. I know you're listening and watching Uncle Dave.
Yes.
We're born on the same day.
Oh, no,
him and my mum were literally like brother and sister. My mum had red hair and freckles.
Yeah.
Uncle Dave, the blonde hair, blue eyes, fair skin. So they both
had
similar experiences in terms of, trying to, it's not that they had to make a mark or anything, but, not having darker skin and being a black fella back in those days, You had to prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And Uncle Dave could fight.
Yes, thankfully
right? My mum could fight.
And I think it was one of those things that you kind of had to.
You learned to fight at a young age.
Yeah, in those situations. And I do. And I think still to this day, sometimes there's people that do see someone with fair skin, blue eyes, and think they're not black. And I think it's about what's inside your heart, and if you know your mob, your culture, and everything like that, that's what it's all about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Uncle Dave is a very strong black fella.
Yes, he is.
And unfortunately, you know, a lot of non-Aboriginal people think it's all about your skin colour.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, he knows more than I do. And look at me, I feel privileged. Growing up, though, I had a hard time growing up, I guess, being really dark and having really dark features, and I guess in the area that I grew up, that wasn't...
You're targeted.
Yeah, so that growing up, I always thought, I wasn't pretty, or I wasn't good enough, or... Because I never seen any, like, black women on TV or anything that looked
magazines.
Like me. No, so I always assumed that because I was different, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't pretty enough, or anything like that, and... But now growing up, I've learned to love my black skin, and I feel grateful that I have black skin, because my grandmother and pop, they grew up with really dark skin, and I know that, you know, the generations that go down, you lose some of that, you know, pigmentation in your skin, and I'm very dark, so I count that through my grandmother, and I feel grateful. And even when my son was born, I was worried. I kind of didn't want him to have as dark a skin as me, so I was a bit worried. Like, I wanted him to be a bit fairer, because I didn't want him to have to go through similar experiences.
Of course. You knew exactly what he probably be subjected to.
Yeah, and, like, it's a cruel world out there.
It is.
So, and him being my little boy, he come out real dark, and he's darker than me, and I'm just like, and he's fiery too, so I'm just like, he'll hold his own. And he'll be strong, and he'll be strong-willed like I am, and I'm actually proud that he's got dark skin, and I just want to keep our culture strong, you know.
Of course. And I think times are a little bit different now, whereas in our parents' and grandparents' generation, you know, if you could actually deny your Aboriginality, people identified as anything but Aboriginal.
Yeah.
And I remember my nan saying that she used to identify as Indian.
Yeah.
And this was in the 1950s in Redfern, and she said literally, as an Indian woman, she got to marry freely, 3 Irishmen, right?
Yeah,
3 Irishmen. She got to live in a house that she wanted to live in. She worked freely. She drank at the pub with her girlfriends after work in Redfern, and she got to keep her children.
Isn't that crazy?
You know, so...
Someone that's not, he's not originally from this country has more support and freedom
than us as the first people. So my nan, right up until she passed, talking about being Aboriginal was like a dirty word, the word Aboriginal. And you think about being removed for being Aboriginal and the trauma associated with being taken from her family.
Yeah.
Her whole life she had basically rejected. You know, she grew up on the block, raised all of her children after, you know, they were taken from her, and then they found her and all of that stuff. She was still very well known in Redfern, but she was a child of God.
Yeah.
Right, because she went through the homes and she was institutionalised.
Yeah.
And being Aboriginal kind of wasn't even, you never mentioned it.
Yeah.
And now I realise through the work that I do now at Black Card, the intergenerational trauma that my nan, you know, was experiencing and then passed it on to my mum. I now understand why she wasn't comfortable having those conversations. Well, first, she didn't know much about her culture because she was taken at an early age. And then all of the trauma and the abuse that they suffered, it's only now that she's passed that I've looked into her files and seen she was a Cootamundra girl, and you said that your nan was a Cootamundra girl as well.
Crazy.
So for people that don't know the history in this country, Cootamundra was a girls' home that young Aboriginal girls were sent to. And then I'm pretty sure Bomaderry was then the next home on where they did their domestic service to be sent out then to...
As maids.
Slaves.
For white families.
For white families, for wealthy white families. So all of that, my nan obviously tried to put that behind her, assume the identity of an Indian woman, keep her children, work, marry, and try and live a normal life. And then the authorities actually knocked on her door. Wow. And my Uncle Gary, who was your Nan's best friend, Uncle Gary remembered the day that he actually said to me, he passed 2 years ago, the knock on the door, when he opened it, Nan came to the door and they said, Patsy, we've caught up with you. And her last words was, can I say goodbye to him? Oh. And, you know, my Nan never spoke about it, but I share this story nearly every single day because I want people to realise that when we're sharing especially our lived experience and our family's experience, that it's recent history.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago that they were still removing kids. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. I think a lot of, you know, non-Aboriginal people assume that it was years ago, 200 years.
Yeah. It's in the past.
Yeah. And even though, like, with my grandmother, the effects of what happened to her passed down to me. And hopefully it doesn't, but it could be passed down to my son.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like my mother and my father growing up and them turning to drugs and alcohol abuse and ending up in prison most of their lives, I feel that that's in turn from that intergenerational trauma.
It's definitely, when you actually look into intergenerational trauma, people who have experienced trauma are 15 times more likely to die by suicide, 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic, 3 times more likely to inject drugs, 3 times more likely to be on antidepressant medication, 3 times more likely to be absent from work and to experience serious job problems. Yeah. But then on top of that, you just think about our mob being illiterate, our grandmother's generation.
My pop couldn't write.
My Nan, grade 3.
Yeah.
That was the education that a domestic needed.
Exactly.
To go and clean a house and look after someone else's kids.
They didn't have the privilege to go to school. And that's why I really wanted to finish year 12. I wanted to do these things because my grandparents never had that opportunity. And I feel very grateful now that, you know, I guess this life is getting better for us. There's still a long way to go, definitely, but we have more opportunities where we can take that. So I try to take every opportunity that I can because my grandparents never had that.
Yeah. I think about, you know, when it's not every day where I sit there and think about some of the challenges in my life or within my business, but when I start thinking, I feel a little bit guilty. Like here I am worrying about or complaining about something that 1 or 2 generations ago, they couldn't even keep their children.
Yeah.
Or they weren't citizens, so they weren't included. They couldn't go to school. And so I literally got to stop myself from going, all right, things aren't that bad.
Yeah.
We've got it a lot better than them, and they fought the hard fights.
They did.
And thinking about fighting the hard fights, how did you end up boxing?
Yeah.
Because deep down inside, I actually would love to box.
Yeah.
But I know that first I love these nails.
You got to take them off.
I know. First.
Can't have them, look.
No nails. That kind of worries me, that not having nails.
You can still paint them, I guess.
Still paint them, but just can't have the fake ones. And yes, the bunnies didn't get up.
Yeah.
How did you get into boxing?
Yeah, well, like you said, Uncle Dave, he was a boxer and he used to fight around quite a bit, and I guess fighting was in my blood no matter what. So I did some research actually because of my grandmother, Auntie Barb. She never really spoke of the family, and only recently I started to delve into her and her past, and she's a very hard woman, so it was like kind of like I had to get it out of her, and then she would keep telling me names and stuff, so I'd make sure I'd write them down, and so her maiden name is Sandy. Sandy's actually a big name up in in like Brisbane area. So
I know a lot of Sandys.
Yeah, so that was.
I've got actually nieces and nephews that are Bayles through their dad.
Yeah,
and their mother's a Sandy.
Well,
so they're probably your cousins.
Yeah, they would be because
they're Mun and Charlie.
Yeah,
Desert.
Big mob, and so my nan, she never went back there. So she had brothers, sisters, but she never really reconnected with, and that's really sad. And I promised her, I said, I'll go up, let's go up. Like, I'll pay for your flights, everything. No flying. She wanted to drive. And then she couldn't because she had to come back the same day because of her dialysis. She was on dialysis every pretty much second day, and she wasn't too well. So that kind of didn't allow that to happen. But I did heaps of research, and so her grandfather, Henry Monsell, they call him Harry Monsell, he was a fighter. He was a boxer, and him and his wife had 16 kids, sorry. No TVs, clearly. They had 16 kids, and they were all boxers. All the boys were boxers, and I didn't know them at all. Yeah. Didn't get to meet them. But my great-great-grandmother, she actually lived till she was 111. So back then, and they were on Cherbourg Mission. There's a big write-up on them, actually, how she's seen him walking in, my great-grandfather, with chains around his neck, and she was sitting on under the tree, and she said the way that he walked in, he was a man, and she's like, I'm going to marry that man, and she did.
With chains around his neck.
Yeah, literally chains around the neck, and that was taken in the Barambra Mission.
Barambra Mission.
Yeah,
which is now known as Cherbourg.
In Cherbourg,
so
yes.
we live, in terms of Clint and I,
yeah,
we live 2 hours from Cherbourg.
Oh, there you go, yeah.
So very close. That's Gubby country.
Yeah, see? So all this connection, I'm like, there's so many. And then they had their kids, then they were all boxers, and they moved to Mooly, and then they lived their life there.
Wow.
Mooly. So, it's a big place. Like everything, it's like kind of all connected.
Campbelltown to Redfern to Brisbane, because a lot of the Sandys are in Brisbane, to Cherbourg, to Mooly.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just like,
So you're related to nearly every black fella on the East Coast.
Yeah, so I just can't go there.
Don't date.
Yes, and then my son, his father's a Davis and a Stewart, so South Coast up to Nambucca, no go either. So my poor little boy, if he wants to have a black woman, he's got to go
West Coast, Northern Territory, Desert Mob.
So I guess that reading all about all that stuff, I was like, it must have just been embedded in me, and I just didn't know, and I found it very late, and I went through some pretty bad DV at one point in my life, and to the point that I got hurt pretty bad, and I was in a really dark place after that. I hadn't had my son yet, but after that I just thought, I don't want to ever let another man try and
be someone else's punching bag.
Ever. And so from that, after going through that really dark kind of time in my life, I went to a boxing gym, and I loved it. And I didn't really do much then. I still wasn't in that good place, but a year and a bit after I had my son, I went back to Campbelltown PCYC, and I walked in, and coach, he's still my coach now, Aaron Bailey, in 2019, he's like, oh, do you ever want to fight? And I said, if I'm good enough, yeah, I'd love to. And
where's them gloves?
Yeah, just let me at him. And he said, yeah, you're good enough. And I went into like the advanced class, and within 3 months I had my first amateur fight. And
what was that like?
That was the most amazing thing you can ever do. Like, scary, so scary, knowing that you're going in and you don't know the other person for a bar of soap. They could be anyone, but you're going in there, and I'm telling you, like, the
adrenaline,
fear, just excitement, all wrapped into one. It was crazy. It was over. I probably went too hard in my first one, because I think it would just all come out. So I ended up winning by first round TKO, which is to help protect like fighters with concussion. So they stopped the fight.
Because you scored it just mortar.
Yeah, yes. And I look back now, and I'm like, oh,
do you feel sorry for it? Did you actually after go, oh no?
After, it's actually really good, because like after we get photos and we say well done, for me, boxing, the community within boxing is amazing. Like, you can go punch on with a girl and sparring, and you both got blood everywhere, and then you'll jump out and you give each other a hug and get a photo and say thanks. And I just think it's the best. And I regret that I found it later on in life, but I was able to kind of do what I wanted to do, went out and, party, had my little boy, played football, and then did my singing career, and now this is like my
So no
focus.
more singing. Well, you sing, you're going to sing
I love
regardless.
to sing. Yeah.
In terms of taking up singing
as a full-time
career,
no.
Boxing, you love boxing more.
I love it way more, and I just think, I did singing for such a long time that I kind of fell out of love with it by the end, and I always need something. My mind, I always got to be doing something and, fulfilling my needs with just myself, and I always have a high, I guess, standard for myself that I want to do something with my life. I don't want to just waste it, and I'm glad I just found boxing because now I've turned professional, and I'm coming up to my 3rd professional fight, and I never thought that I'd get paid to punch
do something.
Like, it's insane. And I just think, like, a little girl in, this housing commission house, and with all my cousins, we used to punch on though.
Of course.
With all the boys. So
you're taught to punch on at an early age, just to stand up for yourself.
Yeah, it was just something that you had to do. And growing up with the boys, I was the only girl in the house, so it was just,
you had to punch on with them too.
So it was
otherwise they'll stand over you.
Yeah, honestly. So it was just something that was always, I guess, embedded. But now I'm able to go in, and there's a controlled environment where you do it safely. And you don't. I used to be angry, and through that time of my life, I did go through a rough patch where I was kind of angry at the world and hated the world, and was like, why me? Why has all this bad stuff happened to me? And now I just use that inside of me, what I have inside of me, into a positive thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that boxing is violent, but it's really technical, and it's actually a beautiful sport. And the people that you meet within that community is awesome. There's a lot of people that think, that you see sometimes there's footy players and they kind of on a pedestal, but boxers, they just don't care. You just go into a gym, there's like nothing, and they will just talk to you like a normal person.
And I think in terms of just our mob, right? Our mob are pretty deadly at anything. Whether they football, basketball, running, right? A lot of our mob, that natural talent.
Yeah.
That we could kind of, my kids, for instance, it's whether OzTag recently, then they played AFL, then there's soccer, swimming, rugby league, basketball, and I had to say just pick one or two.
Yeah.
And focus on one or two.
Yeah.
In terms of kids in your community, do you see some of these young girls now looking up to you?
Oh, yeah. I freak out. Like, I go down to my uncle's little program that he runs down, and he does that just down the road from my house in my community where I grew up, Ambervale, Rosemeadow, and I go down there and see all these little kids that grew up in pretty much the same circumstances as me, and I'm like, and you can do whatever you want. Don't ever, ever let anyone tell you that you can't. Because I had, growing up, it was like, you're not going to do this. You're not going to be that.
Of course.
But to see someone that's done something that's really close to them and right there, and say, oh, she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
It gives them that hope. And I see all the time that there's so many talented individuals, so many kids, especially young Aboriginal girls that just have that natural talent. But boxing, it's a really unforgiving sport, so you have to really dedicate your life to it. So I'm training 2-3 times a day now in camp, every second day running 5Ks, doing my sprints, plus sparring, plus my sessions in the night.
And diet. There's the whole food.
Yeah, so I'm dieting right now just to make weight. So I have to make weight at featherweight, which is 57 kilos.
Yep.
I'm 58 at the moment, so I'm pretty good with my weight. But I'll be dropping down hopefully to 55.
Wow.
So that to, deal with all of that, plus keeping your training up, plus your diet, it's mentally one of the toughest sports, I reckon, that you could ever get into. But
or maybe I'll hold back on boxing.
No, definitely. I think any young woman should take it up, even go in and do a class. Like, don't get me wrong, you don't have to want to
go and compete.
Yeah,
but just in terms of for fitness
and your
an
mental
outlet.
state.
Yeah.
Yes, it is the best. And hopefully, I guess when boxing's finished and hopefully I'm world champ one day. I'd love to get into schools or run programs that I can implement music, mentoring, and plus bringing in boxing as an element into the lives of different kids.
Of course. Well, I was going to say in terms of, is that your dreams, your hopes is actually to be world champion?
Yeah, I want to be the first Aboriginal female world champion. We've had males.
You heard it here on the show.
Yes, and I never thought that would ever be possible, but I believe with my drive and, what I have inside of me, I might not be the fastest, the strongest, quickest hands, but I have something deep inside of me that you can't really teach.
Yeah.
And
I've seen it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you now, a lot of people that have watched your books can see that's just you've got what it takes. I've seen a lot of women fight, but your style and the aggressiveness, but also when you pull back.
Yeah.
I was saying to my husband, I was like, man, first I was thinking, is she going to win? There was one fight there where I think you got robbed of a point. Then you won the next fight after that. You won your next fight.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to this fight.
Yeah,
You've got a fight coming up. Now, for people that are listening or even watching, how can they support you?
Yeah, definitely. If you get onto my Instagram, I have a link in my bio to buy tickets. I'm also selling supporter shirts. And those tickets, if you buy those tickets, they end up coming back to me, hopefully, and that in turn supports my career.
Yeah, that's your salary. You actually start to get paid.
It really is. Like women, we don't get paid at all. Well, really, we don't really get paid that much, but we work off like endorsements and sponsorships. So
on that note, sponsorship.
Yes.
If anyone's out there,
if anyone wants to jump on board Team Dargan, I'd be truly grateful. Because I've had to quit my job, do this full time, plus be a full time mum. It is hard work, but I have the drive that I just want to keep doing it so I can make sure that my little boy can grow up. And I know that my goal is to be world champ, buy my own house, so we can live in it, and he can have whatever he wants.
Financially secure.
Yeah, we didn't have that growing up. That was something that literally my nan used to have to go to the secondhand shops every day to buy clothes and different things or different outfits if I had to sing and stuff. So she did it really, really hard for me, and I want to give back to her as well. And if I could do that, I thought it was going to be music. I know I made her proud with my music, but
of course.
my nan who raised me, she was always been like, no, Nelly, you're going to be a singer. Sport. She didn't like me playing sport. I was really good growing up.
Don't want you to get hurt.
No, you're a girl. You're a girl. That's it. No football, this and that. You can't do that. And when I found boxing, she didn't like it at all. She's like, you're gonna mess up your face. And the last fight she come to, and that was the first time she ever come watch me. And now she's always like, have you trained today? Make sure drop off.
She's your biggest supporter now.
Yeah,
she's always been your biggest supporter.
Yeah, and she, she helps mind my son if I need to, when I need to go train or do sparring. And she's 82, and she's still young enough to be able to help me out, and I appreciate her. And everything I do now is hopefully for her, and just want to make her proud.
Too deadly. Well, look, sis, thank you so much.
Thank you.
To jump on here, share your life, your experiences, your family, your history. I just hope that people that are listening, especially our mob that are listening or watching our yarn, that, they draw some inspiration. And especially, like you said, you've had some really tough times and you've been able to bounce back from that. And a lot of our mob, especially our women that are doing it tough, hopefully after watching this that they can start to see, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah,
definitely. And, I appreciate it being here. And, hopefully we can get more about to my fight in Newcastle. So it's the Newcastle Entertainment Centre, and it's on the 8th of October.
Oh, not too soon.
Not too far.
Not too far. Not too soon. Not too far.
It's not too far actually.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
For your next fight, and can't wait to see you again. We'll catch up.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thanks.
What an amazing story Shanell has. Growing up raised by her nan and also supported by a lot of her extended family. Growing up as a young Aboriginal woman in Western Sydney, trying to find, her dreams, trying to find something for her. Singing, as she talked about, her love for singing from a young age. She thought she was going to be a singer, and I'm still pretty sure that that's something she could do. But chasing her dreams now with boxing, unbelievable. Go from singing to now boxing, and just talking about the sport, her commitment, the fact that she trains, I don't know how many hours a day in, day out, that she is so committed to achieving her goals as probably the first Aboriginal female world champion. And I honestly believe in her 100% that she could achieve whatever she sets her mind to. I honestly think that for our mob, especially chasing their dreams, stories like Shanell's need to be told. To sit and just listen and even feel parts of her experience, her childhood, growing up, the challenges, the barriers that she's faced and overcome. A lot of our mob may not even think it's possible to reach for the stars, achieve whatever it is. Reach out to people like Shanell, jump on Instagram, follow her, and also other people that I've had on this podcast that have shared their stories. There is so many that you can go and watch, or you can listen to if you're not on YouTube yet. But yeah, I just hope that this was one of those podcasts or those yarns that will stick with you. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and also if you haven't subscribed yet, go to YouTube and subscribe to the Black Magic Woman YouTube channel. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Until next time, bye for now.
Don't forget to follow Black Magic Woman podcast on all social media platforms. To keep up to date with the latest episodes and news, head to blackmagicwoman.com.au. You can rate and review the podcast on iTunes, and please feel free to share the podcast with your family and friends.